All right. Know what it is. You know who it is. We are back with another episode of the BG Perform podcast on the late night radio.
Hey-o. I don't have a voice for that. I got a face for radio, but not the voice for it, you know?
It's a really dreary day here. I think me and Jerry are both a little fatigued, we'll call it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Long week, long day.
Yeah.
But we're here. We're ready to talk. Ready to go for it. Jerry, how was the week? How was the last couple of days?
Week's been good. I got back from Colorado this Sunday, kind of late, so sleep going into Monday's work day. It wasn't ideal, but we still got to the gym, got some stuff done, hit some heavy legs, and we're recovering from that, feeling good. Workouts have been good. Work's been super busy. You know, building that member base at the gym, building client base online, that type of stuff. So working on growth, but all good things. We're moving forward. How about you?
Good. Went to Delaware this weekend. Been training hard. Shoulders getting there. Did shoulder press for the second week in a row. I did some banded pull-ups today. Still not feeling 100%. I can't flat bench at all. I can incline bench. I incline bench.
Have you tried
35
close?
pounds.
Like close light?
I didn't do barbell. I did dumbbells.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, dumbbells were not a no-go still at 20 pounds. But incline dumbbell, I did 35s this week for sets of 10.
Flat's giving you an issue?
Yeah. I think it's because of the upward pressure when I'm laying down.
Mm-hmm.
But can't do push-ups yet. Can't really support body weight out in front of me. I can in a plank, but I can't really lower myself. Anything past a straight arm, slight bend, is definitely very painful. So that still might take a couple weeks to get better. But
you doing
everything else
still?
that I can. What?
You doing serratus work still?
Trying to. I can do windmills. So I've been doing some windmills. Pullovers are a little bit tough. Can't really do those. I do cable lat pullovers.
Okay.
Cable pullovers.
Have you tried serratus press at all with a band?
A little bit. I haven't that motion doesn't feel too good when I'm putting out weight in front of me. So I've just been trying to do it in the ways I'm trying to do stuff that causes zero pain right now.
Yeah, that's what you should do.
Which is most things except for flat bench, push-ups, full pull-ups, and what else? Shoulder press a little bit. Doesn't cause too much pain actually. And I think that's really it.
Brandon actually hasn't wiped his butt since he hurt his shoulder.
Yeah, it's been sitting.
Just stewing.
Today, we're going to be talking about warm-ups that win sessions. So we're going to be talking about how to break down a warm-up, how to kind of build a warm-up, how to develop one that not only is effective, because I think there's a lot of mistakes around the warm-up in general, and I think a lot of it comes from trying to do too much before the session. And I think we can get really creative with the session, get really creative with progressions inside of the warm-up, and really creative with how we get people to buy in and get ready, right? Because the whole point of a warm-up is to limit injuries or to prevent injuries, right? We can't 100% ever prevent injuries, but we can do our best to prime ourselves to avoid them at all costs. And I think that, the term bulletproofing gets thrown out around a lot. Obviously, that's not a realistic term. Like I said, I think we can do our best to avoid injury at all costs, but bulletproofing doesn't really exist because, I used to have this conversation a lot in MMA, especially when I was working with Ian a lot, because he would throw that term around. He would be like, I want a bulletproof. And I was like, yeah, we can, but to a certain point, I can't control, when someone's kicking you in the leg, essentially with a baseball bat, and you get hurt from that. There's not bulletproofing that you can do for that, There's
put him in a lab and make his skin Kevlar. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Or just have Wolverine's bones.
Yeah, a little adamantium in there.
Can't really do much about that. So, there's acute traumas that happen inside of sport that you obviously can't avoid, but there's also things that you can prep for, and the warm-up is a place for that. So today we're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into how to make a warm up really efficient. We're going to talk about how to make it, effective, how to create buy-in with it, and we're going to go from there. Anything to add to that?
I'm ready to jump in.
All right. So, story from the week, I think, to kind of start this off, right? So I think the warm up a lot of times can be overblown, but it's also a really great place where you can get a lot of work done early on in someone's fitness journey. And I think one of the biggest ways I've seen it is by because there's a couple ways we can do a warm up, which we're gonna kind of get into, and there's getting really kind of basic, and it's essentially just like doing the movement for the day, that and like doing it at a lighter, weight with like just the bar or with lighter weight, whatever it might be. Or there's actually like separating movements at specific joint angles and movements and whatnot, and you're priming for the pattern of the day, right? That way is obviously a little bit more involved, but one of the things I really like to do in the warm up is work on skills or work on things that I know are going to be in the warm up later on. And we've talked about this a couple times with clients. We as coaches obviously have to go into some of these exercises or some of these sessions and say, okay, well, after a certain point, if something's just not clicking, I'm not going to keep doing it. I have to change it, right? And in my eyes, with the warm up, if we know there's problem areas, or if we know there's areas where a lot of people commonly fuck up with movement, right? Take, for example, the RDL. Ideally, we can use that warm up to prepare for that, right? And I had a client this week. We've been working together for almost 5 months now, which has been great, and she's made a ton of progress. She just this week was the first time we started deadlifting, because I wanted to really hold off on it, because it's something that obviously has a little bit of risk attached to it if you're not 100% ready. And I thought at the time there's a lot of ways that we can kind of get that stimulus without taking on the risk of the deadlift. But I think now she's ready to do that deadlift. So we just started it this week. And one of the things I wanted to work on inside the warm-up was a pattern that kind of helps her with the deadlift, that kind of teaches that pattern of the deadlift without having to get under a bar and get heavy load. So one of the things we worked on was kind of a little RDL into deadlift progression, where we started with the PVC pipe. We kind of worked our way down into that mid shin. Then we started to work on some regular kettlebell deadlifts, and then we started to work on the actual like full barbell deadlift at the end. Hold on, someone's honking their fucking horn.
I was gonna say, I couldn't tell if the train was coming or if that was on your end.
Sorry about that, guys. Someone's honking the horn like a
What's gone away?
jackass.
Sorry about that, guys.
It was the Amazon. It was the Amazon driver. I don't know what he's.
At your house?
Yeah, I don't know. He was backing up from. You know how my driveway's really long?
Yeah.
He was
He's
like
just
backing all
holding the
way.
horn as he.
Yeah, just like backing out of the driveway. So literally, he was just doing. Crazy.
Drives
Anyway,
forward and crashes into the house.
yeah. Anyway, so where was I with this? What was I just talking
You're
about?
talking about the RDL into deadlift warm up.
Okay, yeah. So we were working on like the RDL to kind of prime that hip movement, because really, when you look at the deadlift in comparison to the RDL, the only real difference that we're having here is that initiating position from the bottom, and we're getting a little bit of a knee bend at the bottom so that we can touch that bar down to the ground, right? So we started working on the RDL because she's very comfortable with the RDL, and then we started to initiate getting the kettlebell down to the ground, and then we started to work into the barbell, because that would help us get through that full movement and kind of take our time inside of the warm-up. Now, along with that, we had a whole other section to the warm-up, which we'll talk about. But why I like this so much is because there's some people like her who are taking that advanced route. Like, hey, we're getting into now a big movement, which there's a lot of potential for her to grow inside the deadlift, right? Like today was her first time deadlifting, and I think she hit like 145 for sets of 8. And like, that's really good, right? But I think that she's easily someone who could lift into the 200s, 250s for a deadlift, and she needs time to get there, but she needs to learn that movement and have experience with it. So where I'm kind of going with this is the reason why it's so important is with the warm up, you can work on those movements that we're going to need a little bit more time, and they can kind of mess up in the warm up while still feeling and learning that movement. RDL is a great example because I mentioned it. The RDL is one that trips up a lot of people because you're trying to keep tension in the hamstring and you're trying to keep strength tension in the glutes while learning that hip hinge pattern, right? So what's really important is that while you're going through that, you don't want to make mistakes while you have 50 pounds out in front of you, right? Making that mistake with a band or a PVC pipe or just body weight, that's fine. And if you can really start to create that tension with no weight or just a PVC, then you're really going to start to get it when the weight gets added on. And that's something that I think inside the warm up is very simple to teach and gives you some extra reps to learn. So I guess my story, to kind of sum it up, was, the warm up can be a really good place. And I saw it live with my client where you can get some extra coaching in that doesn't have as much risk as it would inside of the actual movement.
Yeah, I kind of, I have a similar story, but it's not so much same movement pattern, but opposite. So one of my clients that I'm working with remotely, she has some knee issues that she works through every once in a while. Like for a long time, it would dislocate on something simple, like going down the stairs, it would like pop out of place, like stuff like that. So a big thing for her was, yeah, it sucks. Like the knees freak me out like that. Like Mr. Deeds, you remember that? Side note here, Mr. Deeds, the
I
guy who
think
used
so,
to
yeah.
pull his leg, he was like, "Is this normal?" And he asked the doctor, and it's just snapping left and right. Ever since I saw that movie, I was like, oh, I don't like even like a little bit of shift in my knee. It messed me up. But
Yeah.
she's she's come a really long way. But every once in a while, she'll still get like little twinges in her knee, or it's feeling like it's not entirely warmed up. Even if we warm up that movement pattern of like knee flexion. So what I started doing with her is actually I started doing it with myself as well, especially on the days where I have heavy leg press or squat or anything that's going to be heavy knee dominant movements, is warming up the hamstrings first. And I think we talked about this recently on a podcast, but
Yeah.
basically I've been giving her hamstring curls that she'll do for warm up sets, like kind of like as not intermediate, an in between for her warm up that she's doing that day. That's across the gym, and then once she's done, she goes across the gym and does her hamstring curls, and then hops onto the machines for her work.
Cool.
But something as simple as working the opposite muscle of the one that you have that day can get a little extra blood flow, and kind of, especially for the knees, lubricate the knee, make it so it's feeling a little easier, less stiff. So when you get to those movements, it doesn't feel as compromised. So that would be my main story of the
Cool.
of the week.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good aspect of it. And I think that like online is even more important to have a structure to your warm up. And I think just as much as people put a lot of time into the programming, I don't want to overblow the warm up, because I do think the warm up, I don't know how I want to put this. Like, I don't know that the warm up's not as important, obviously, like as the workout, but it doesn't need to be this grandiose thing, right? It just needs to be what we need to get in there, get moving, and then get to the actual sets. And a lot of times, with that, the warm up can become too much, right? And I think we both have experience with that. And I've been in a position before where I don't have a full hour with somebody, or I only have 30 minutes. And sometimes, literally, like what Jerry just said, we're kind of mixing things together to prep the body a little bit more efficiently. But in my eyes, like, we really shouldn't be warming up for more than like 10 minutes. Like, and that's even a lot. Like, if you're warming up for more than 10 minutes and you're still feeling like, hey, I'm not ready to go, there's either something up there, you shouldn't be doing that movement, or you should be pulling it back in some capacity. And obviously, like, you're not going to feel great every single day. And maybe you need a couple extra minutes and you just take your time getting there. But like your actual warm up, after about 5 minutes, you should start to be breaking a sweat, or getting warm. And then after 10 minutes, you should be like, within your first couple warm up sets for the movement, in my opinion. Right. So what I want to kind of get into next is, how do we build an efficient warm up and allow ourselves to get creative inside of that? So for me, I have like a little bit of a structure to my warm up. So I have a beginning piece, which would be called like base support. Then we have a little bit more like mobility that either focuses on the hip, shoulder, or spine. And then we start to get into a little bit more like, depending on the person in front of me, obviously, some type of bouncing or skipping or hopping or bounding, something like that. and then we get into some type of plyometric. That's like a full warm up, what that would look like, right? That would be like MMA athlete in camp. And then basically those layers that get added are dependent on like the level of the athlete, what they're looking for, what they're looking to do for their training. So the base support takes 30 seconds. We're going like heel to toe walk, heel walk, toe walk, knee hugs, right? Just starting from the foot, working our way up to the hip and try to introduce some patterns there. Then we start to get, for me, I really like to hit like 4 or 5 main movements. I always like to hit single leg RDLs. I always like to hit hip airplanes. I always like to hit YTWs, shoulder swimmers, and sometimes I'll do like scapular push-ups or something like that as well. I'll also, depending on the day, band pull-apart series, PVC pass-throughs, reverse PVC pass-throughs, things like that are really, I think, like fundamental. And no matter what you're doing, those types of movements benefit you and can be used by anybody, right? And what that allows you to do is, like, once you have those bare bones movements that no matter what are going to help, that's when you can start to get creative, right? And I kind of had this conversation on the weekly OPEX podcast that they do, because we were talking kind of about patterns and movements. And I think once you have a baseline of structure to something, then you can start to get creative and branch out. So now we can, maybe we can look at single leg RDLs with a band, or single leg RDLs, with a dumbbell or a kettlebell, or single leg RDLs with ISO holds, or we can start to get creative with that. But for me, I always kind of look at it start from the feet and then work our way up into, I guess we would say like body temperature, but start from the feet and work our way up in skill level, intensity, specificity, all that. And that's kind of what helps me look to build the warm up that's efficient, and then also helps me be creative in building that out. And I'm gonna add a little bit more to that. But is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, my warm ups are pretty similar. I usually start off with something that's a little more mobility based, and then something a little more dynamic, and then I get into more specific types of warm ups based on the day. So if they have like a push day, it's gonna I'm the same way. I love scapular push-ups. They get me feeling really good, ready for push days. So I'll throw something like that. I'll throw in some W's, swimmers, whatever, just to get the rotator cuff a little bit of blood flow, and work on some of those scapular stabilizers. And like if it's a leg day, I'll make sure, this is another thing, is depending on the client and what their issues might be that they've had in the past. So like this knee client, if I have a leg day, I'll focus a lot on a little bit more glute activation, because I want to make sure that they're getting the right drive through their leg, because I know that for her, like if she's not warming up her glutes properly in the beginning, she starts to feel it in her knee a little bit more. And maybe some like reverse walks with some resistance, something to get the leg moving. But again, it's more specific based on what they're doing that day. So I'll always try to, again, prep the movements for the day with the supporting muscles before I get into the warm-up sets of the main movement.
So let's talk about it. Like, let's break it down. So someone's listening, they can have like an actual thing to take away. So if you're going to squat, right? You have a client, you're going to squat, barring any major issues like the knee dislocation, girl or client.
Yeah.
What's a warm-up going to look like for someone who's going to squat with your program? So give me like sets, reps, breakdown as quick as you can, but like break it down into the steps that you'd use.
Yeah, I'm doing like 2 to 3 sets, something that's going to kind of warm up the glute a little bit, something for the quad. So I'd say first thing is maybe doing like a banded skater kickback, something as simple as stability. It gets the foot warm. It gets you feeling a little more secure through the lower limb. And then after that, you can go up to something like a, oh my God, why am it's slipping my mind? Knee over toe lunge. So something to like get a little more mobility for the quad, get a little bit of that stretch at the end. This way they're feeling a little more activation through full range of motion. So when they're in the squat, they feel strong. And then I'll also throw in some T-spine rotation, just because whenever people are under a bar, they get so tight in their back that if I'm not giving them some type of T-spine rotation or thoracic mobility, they're going to feel super stiff and then end up having like that being the limiting factor. Yeah. So I'd say 2 to 3 sets. If we're doing the skater kickbacks, I'm going like 8 to 10 per side. If I'm doing the The knee over toe lunges, I'm probably doing 8 to 10, still lighter weight, just slow controlled movement. And then if I'm doing the T spine rotation, like 8 per side. Keep
Hmm.
it like slightly higher reps, but just make sure that we're going full range of motion over everything so they feel nice and warm.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
I think like just to kind of piggyback, if someone came to me and they were going to squat,
Mm-hmm.
first thing I do, like I said, base support. So we're working on the feet, just going through heel to toe, heel
Mm-hmm.
walks, and toe walks. Probably about 20 steps per, I guess, pattern we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 heel to toes, 20 heel walks, 20 toe walks. Then we're getting about 8 knee hugs per side, preferably walking. Take a couple steps in between. I always like to have the person raise their knee up as high as they can by themselves and then hug it the rest of the way, just so they get a little bit more like hip flexor activation. Then from there, if they're going to squat, we're looking at the single leg RDL and the hip airplane. Those are the two most important movements to me
Mm-hmm.
because you're obviously working on a little bit of internal and external rotation of the hip with the airplane, and then a little bit more flexion extension with the RDL, but also challenging the glute a little bit more, challenging the hamstring, working through like a really athletic range of motion that I think a lot of people miss out on. And then a single leg, priming the body in a single leg position to say squat with 2 legs is ideal because that's going to
Mm-hmm.
give us the most bang for our buck in regards to stability and then output in that squat. From there, very similar to what Jerry said, I really like an open book stretch. I'll usually do
Mm-hmm.
something like an open book stretch or um, an inchworm, or not an inchworm, a downward dog, like a scapular push up into a downward dog, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The open book stretch tends to be the go-to for most of it because a lot of people love that stretch and it just feels really good if you're doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we'd get into some type of, depending on, like I said, the person, we'd get into some pogos, A skips, lateral hops, lateral bounds, alternating pogos, single leg A skips, right side like repeated skips, things like that. Very very like ankle car or not cars, ankle what are they called? Dribbles, ankle dribbles. We'd get into something like that, and then we'd get into some type of like big plyometric, whether it be like a box jump or a broad jump or a bound, or we're looking at med ball slams or side slams or overhead slams or something like that, right? That's going to be like a full warm up that I would take somebody to. I would just do one round in the beginning, kind of increasing the intensity as we get there. So it's like starting at the feet, intensity is increasing as each of those movements increases. And then we'd start to kind of do some very explosive athletic movements that are going to prime us. Then we'd hit those very last plyometrics or ballistics, and then we're getting right into that movement, hitting maybe 2 to 3 sets to warm up and get up to that working weight, depending on your working weight. Obviously, if you're squatting like fucking 500 pounds, it's not going to be 3 warm up sets. But trying to conserve as much energy as possible as you're working up to those heavy loads, and and that would be like an ideal warm up for me. And then with the plyometrics and the ballistics, or really with the low level plyometrics, that'd probably be like one set of each for like 20 to 30 seconds, and then the full plyometrics, like the jumps and throws, I'd probably do like 2 sets of 3 to 5 per pattern, and probably choose like uh, two jumps or throws on that day, depending on again who's in front of me. So that would be like what a warm up would look like for me, and then obviously that would be what a warm up would look for Jerry.
I
For
think
me, what?
I want to, based on what you said, I think we should dive into it because people probably be wondering when you're warming up for that main movement and you're doing those warm up sets. Let's say
Yeah,
it's like your client's going to squat 300 pounds. How many warm up
yeah.
sets are you going into it based on how many sets you have? What does the
Okay.
weight look like as we jump through? I think that's a really
So
good
if
thing to
you're if
touch on.
you're if you're squatting say 315, we'll make it easy because that's like
Yeah.
a pretty heavy number.
Boom, boom.
So 315, and let's say that's about 90% of your max, and you're doing let's say 5 sets of 3 for the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say we're probably doing a set at 135, 185, 225, and then maybe 275 or somewhere maybe like 275, 295 depending on that. So that's probably 4 working sets, and if we're
Mm-hmm.
doing 3 sets for the day, probably doing like the first one's at like 6 at 135, 6 to 8. The next one would probably be at like 3 to 5, and then I'd hit like 3, 3, and then get into the working weight for the day.
Hmm.
I try to minimize the amount, and like to be completely honest, depending on who it is, if you're squatting 315 for like 90%, we might go 135, 225, and
Hmm.
just skip the 185 and then go 275 and then get into the 315 because, percentage wise or effort wise, that's not going to be that big of a jump for somebody who's squatting 315 to go from 135 to 225. Obviously, if your max is 250 and you go from 135 to 225, that's going to be a huge jump, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think I would try to limit to no more than five. Like you really don't want to be doing more than five sets, and you want to try to keep. I try to go like two reps plus or minus the actual working reps. So if it's
Hmm.
three, then like probably somewhere around 5 to 7 or 5 to 6 reps for the warm up sets, and then even below that, like if I was hitting say 275 for warm up, I'd probably just do one personally, maybe two if I feel like I needed
Yeah,
it. But
I
I
was
would
gonna
try to
say
keep those.
two reps right there toward that top end warm up
Yeah,
is usually
and
good because
especially with the
it's
lower
all it
body.
is like the central nervous system response of like I have heavy weight. This is me preparing for the heavier weight.
Yeah, and I think with the lower body, it's a lot easier, right? If we're talking
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
upper body, you're not going to be able to make those huge jumps necessarily, and you have to be
Hmm.
careful because you can really fatigue yourself if you don't warm up properly, right?
Yeah.
Or if you don't hit those early warm up sets in the right, I guess, fashion moving forward. Because kind of diving into the upper body warm up too, like not much changes for me for the upper body warm up. The only thing that really changes is that specific kind of, I guess. So instead of like the RDL and the airplane, I'd do YTWs and swimmers, and
Hmm.
then I'd probably still do an open book stretch, maybe like a pec and lat stretch of some kind, like a lateral line stretch with the band or something along those lines. But outside of that, like everything I said would probably stay the same setup. And if we were gonna say bench 315, the same, like kind of the same capacity, like 315, we'd probably need one, maybe one more warm up set in there. So like probably minimum four, depending on how that feels and the sets and reps. It depends. And like Jerry said, it's more of a CNS response that we're looking for to get ready. So some people they don't need 4 or 5 sets, right? But that first set, obviously with the working weight, like usually your second set at that weight is going to feel great. The first set's
Hmm.
always going to feel a little bit rough, anyways. So that's why it's really important. We want to try to minimize the amount of uh, rust, I guess, we're feeling when we get to that very first set. Because if we're doing, say, a first set at 315 and we're at like 60%, like that's a wasted set almost at that weight. Because you want to get to that working weight and feel ready to put as much into it as you possibly can, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how you stay healthy. That's how you avoid injury, and et cetera, et cetera. Right? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, that warm up might look different too, depending on obviously the person and their strength level with
Yeah,
the jumps, but depending on their readiness for that day. Like if they're coming in and they're really warm, they're ready to go, and like they go through those first couple warm up sets, and they're just like, yeah, that felt like helium was in the last two plates on the bar. Then it might look a little bit different. Like going into that first set, it might just be a lot stronger, so you don't want to waste their potential on that like heavier 275 set. Maybe do like you said, 1 or 2 reps on that last warm up set, and then just jump right into it.
yeah. Like I think I
Yeah.
always see this. I see this sometimes with people who are just unaware. It's like if you're working up to 275, say on a on
Hmm.
a on a bench, we'll call it. Don't do 8 reps at 225. Like
Yeah.
there's just no reason for it. Like don't
Yeah.
do 8 to 10 reps at 225 just because you can. And it's like
Yeah.
yeah, like obviously you can, but like your working weight is a 275. So one or two, just feel the weight, get the nervous system to fire, and put it back. Like there's nothing worse. I hate when I see it where it's like people are just going and they're failing on warm up sets. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm
Yeah.
like, we're we're trying to get ready for our working weight. Like we don't
That's
need to
like
be
getting ready
failing.
for a 200-meter sprint and you sprint to the starting line.
Yeah,
Like it's just like,
exactly.
what are you doing, man? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I think there's obviously it's an important thing to kind of talk about, but you know I think with a warm up we kind of touched on a couple different aspects already. I think the biggest thing you can take away from this is that the warm up can be very specific, right? And I want to dive into this now, or it can be very general, right? Me and
Hmm.
Jerry kind of dove into some very specific types of warm ups. But at the end of the day, if you're feeling healthy, the biggest thing is just raising that body temperature, right?
Hmm.
Getting that temperature from cold into, you know, a little bit of what would be a sweat. For me, and this is a blessing in disguise, right? I sweat a lot. I get very hot very quick. So, like, I warm up very quickly,
You and me
and I
both,
don't need
buddy.
to do as much. But, what'd you say?
I said, you and me both, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
Sweaty
But
bastards.
with that being said, that doesn't mean that just because my body temperature is like risen, right, that I'm 100% ready to go. I still need to
Hmm.
prime the muscles, especially the central nervous system, which Jerry was talking about. But in general cases, as long as my heart rate is a little bit elevated and my body temperature has elevated, I'm going to be ready to do most things, right? I'm not
Hmm.
going to go from a 5 minute bike into a 315 back squat because that's just dumb, right? But I could go in from a 5 minute bike into a set of hamstring curls, or a 5 minute bike into a set of goblet squats, right? And start working up, because I think, the warm up can be this extravagant thing like we've been talking about, and I think our warm ups are very extra, right? I
Hmm.
don't think the way that me and Jerry are talking about a warm up is something that you know is necessary, right?
Yeah, it's
It's
definitely not
good,
the only way to
right?
do it.
Like that
Yeah.
would be that, like doing the type of warm up we're talking about is, I don't know what I would explain it to, but like it's
It's
going
like
above and beyond.
line. It's like if you're getting ready to meal prep and you put out all the empty containers with the lids just underneath it and you're stacking them, getting ready to put the food in there before it's even cooked. You're just really making sure you're laying a foundation for
Okay, yeah,
success
I like that. I
to
like that.
clean up later. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but what I want you guys to also take away from this is a warm up can be very simple, it can be very quick,
Hmm.
right? Literally, it can be 2 minutes on the treadmill into starting the warm up sets for your squat, right? It can be 5 minutes on the bike into, one or two, like an open book stretch, and then like air squats, and then you're going into the squat, right? It could be a lot of, it could be 5 minutes on the bike or the treadmill or the rower or the ski erg into push-ups and into the bench. Obviously, that's not going to be the most effective warm-up, but it's going to be very efficient and it's going to get us what we need. And then again, really depending on how you're feeling, right? If you're not dealing with any injuries, if you're not dealing with any like nagging things, it doesn't mean you skip the warm up entirely, right?
Hmm.
But it does mean like, hey, maybe I don't have to spend 30 minutes doing hip cars. Maybe I don't have to
Yeah.
spend 45 minutes working on my lat to get ready, right? It's like,
That's where, specifically on my push days, you'll notice my warm ups are significantly longer because of the shoulder injuries I've had in the past and because I know that it's easier to tweak those muscles.
yeah,
It's like if you look at that warm up and then you look at the other days, you'd think that I don't care about warm up on the other days at all.
yeah.
If you had
Like I
no
used
idea
to
what
have
a
my
warm up
my
should
old
look like.
business partner. Oh my God, we just I stopped working out with him because of this. Because he was like, all right, we're gonna work out. I'm like, all right, cool. I'd get ready, I'd change, I'd warm up, and he'd still be like foam rolling his lats. It'd be like 15 minutes later. I'm like, bro, like, what are we doing? Like, is it really taking you this long to fucking warm up? Like, I don't think we need to be doing all this, And it'd take like 30 minutes for him to warm up, and then he would rush through the workout. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is the, I don't know. But anyway, that was
Efficiency
one of
here.
the,
Let's try to
yeah.
figure it out.
And I think if if you can take that away and you understand that elevated body temperature is one of the most important things, and then we can start to kind of isolate problem areas for us, or just get into the pattern, because again, you might not have an hour to train, maybe you only have 30 minutes, right? And one of my favorite ways to kind of make like a very efficient warm up is 2 minutes on the bike, and then let's say we're going to squat for the day, right? We can say squat or bench, whatever it might
Hmm.
be, or deadlift. We're going to do 2 minutes on the bike. We're going to go do an empty bar set, whether it's bench or deadlift or squat. Then we're going to go back on the bike for another minute or two, and then we're going to throw maybe 135 on the bar. And then we're going to do a set of five. Then we're going to go back to the bike, and then we're going to throw the next weight on there. And by that time, you're probably going to feel pretty good to take like another jump, and you can just stay there and kind of work through those first couple sets, right? So
Hmm.
for bench, for example, let's say you got to work up to 225. That might look like 2 minutes on the bike, hit the set with just the bar. 2 minutes on the bike, set at 135, which is 45s on each side. 2 minutes on the bike, we're hitting 185, and then we're just going to rest, let the heart rate come back down, come back about a minute, two later, we're going to hit 225, and that would be our first working set, right? For a squat, that might look like the same thing, where it's like bar for the first set, 2 minutes, 135, 2 minutes, 185, 2 minutes, that sort of deal, and that can be a very quick and efficient warm-up, right? Anything to add to that?
No, that was good.
Cool. The last thing I want to kind of talk about is building buy-in, right? Because I think with the warm-up, we can really kind of like make or break people with the warm-up, because if we start to get a little too crazy with the warm-up for no reason, a lot of people aren't going to want to sit there and do a 45-minute warm-up, right? A lot of people are just there to get it. And I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Like I said, I've seen people who take way too long, and I see people who just completely disregard it. Like I've seen people who, when I used to train at this gym in Albany, it was like a class-based setting. They would come from work, from sitting in a car for 30 minutes, do like 4 knee hugs and have like 225 on the bar and just go for it and just send it. I was like, oh my God. Mind you, I was there for like 30 minutes doing the warm-up, doing everything, like the pre-work, all that stuff. And I was still feeling like shit. So I was like, this dude must be feeling like absolute shit, like garbage. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the deal, where it's like, you want people to come in and be excited about doing the warm-up and show them, it doesn't have to be, again, like it show them some level of progression in it. Mm-hmm. Like show them something that they're doing, that they're getting better at or improving. And that looks different for a lot of people. And that's why I think the individualized fitness is so important, because yeah, we can do general warm-ups in a group setting and it's going to be fine. But for a lot of people, like Jerry said, people might struggle with the squat for different reasons. It might be thoracic mobility. It might be internal rotation. It might be core strength. So there might be different ways that we need to kind of introduce this stuff into it, where we can, get them ready for the squat specifically. And I want to bring this back just one more point, because I did kind of remind myself something I wanted to talk about. The warm-up is a great place to... Actually, you know what? Let me save this. I'm going to save this for the drill. I'm going to save this for the drill. All right. But go ahead. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, not specifically. No, that was good. I just think that I would say, just based off of what you said, it just reminded me. Just a small story. I remember one time I was sitting there with my buddy Gus when we were working at Vasa together, and there was this kid who came in. He must have been like 145 soaking wet, like real thin guy, high school kid, walks right up to the Smith machine and throws 4 plates on each side, and he goes to get underneath it, and Gus goes, and mind you, Gus is strong as shit too. Like this dude he'll like box squat 6 plates on each side. Like he's a professional rugby player. Like he's strong as fuck. And he looks over, he goes, that kid's going to kill himself, right? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. He goes, should I go do something? I was like, yeah, dude, get over there. Because I was with a client and he was just fucking around. He was like, all right. And he stops, he turns around, he goes, do you think it's one of those things where they got a hidden camera for TikTok? I was like, I don't care what it is. He's going to die. You need to go get him. He goes, all right. He ran over there. But dude, hilarious. He got underneath it, and just before Gus got there, he almost went down for a rep, and then he re-racked it. He like hooked it back on. Yeah. And then Gus was like, hey man, you got to warm up. Like I saw him like, you got to, and I knew what he was saying, but it was so funny, dude, because this kid, I know for a fact that if you went down, he wasn't coming back up. He was coming up, but people were going to lift him up on a stretcher. It was that type of thing. Yeah, but
that's go on. Yeah, so I think that's it. I think for me, kind of getting to the next part, I don't know if I have a hot take as much as maybe what I said before, where it's like, you shouldn't be warming up for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like it really should be a 5 to 10 minute deal, where by the end of that 10 minutes, you're breaking a sweat, your central nervous system's on. And really, like, if you need a couple extra minutes, obviously, like, you want to give a little extra care to something, that's totally cool. But if we're going anywhere between 20 plus minutes to warm up, it really probably shouldn't be happening that day. You probably need to figure something else out, right? Mm-hmm. So again, I don't think that's so much of a hot take as much as it is like just a statement. I don't think your warm-ups need to be more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, mine's a hot take for some people, but for me, it's just, it makes sense. But if you have let's say you're going in for a bench press is your first movement, it's your main lift of the day. If you're going in for this day and you have no injury history, you have pretty healthy shoulders, you're pretty strong, you feel good, and you go into the gym knowing that you have bench press and your entire warm up is just a few sets leading up to your bench press, you're probably going to be fine.
Or the world famous.
Yeah.
I love this one. I love the ones where they go like this with the dumbbell.
Yeah,
They go.
real quick. Yeah.
They go like this back.
They get that aggressive door knock.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if
Elbows
you're
just flopping all over the place. They're doing nothing except just,
yeah,
bringing their
just
shoulder up
flailing.
a little bit.
Okay, so really quick, since you don't really have a hot take, what would you say your habit is before doing a bench press? Everybody's got like their little ritual habit. What would you say your habit is?
My habit? To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. Like, is it? I don't. Can you give me an example? Like, do you have one?
My habit is literally like, I'll sit down, I'll shake my arms, I'll look back at the bar, and then I'll dip under it. I'll do this thing, and then I'll grab it every time, like without thought. I'm just always like, I get the little stretch, I grab the bar, and then I pull myself to it. That's pretty much it.
I'd have to think. I'm gonna set up quick on. So I'm gonna imagine.
Let's get a bench press going.
To the bench. I probably go like this with my hands. I rub my hands on my legs, and then I go. I get ready. I sit back. I line my thumbs up with the bar, and then I'd kind of fix myself. Yeah, I don't know. I think that would be it. Probably just the legs. I always rub my legs.
You just look like, if you've ever seen the Olympic Games from 1939.
Yeah.
Or was it 39? Is that what it was?
I don't know. What was it?
Adolf Hitler was hopped up on amphetamines. He's just rubbing his legs like this, watching the race. If you haven't seen that, just look up Hitler on drugs at Olympics, and you'll just he can't sit still. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think.
I do an arm shake every time. That's like before any big lift, before a squat, before I don't know where it came from. But before a squat, deadlift, and bench, I do the same thing. I either go like this, or I do one and then the other.
Honestly, I'm going to have to pay attention. I'm going to have to pay attention. I think with the squat, I have one. The squat, I usually I rock back and forth when I'm under the bar.
I get a little shimmy. I anchor myself in.
Yeah, I usually I rock my feet a little bit, and then I kind of swoop up underneath.
Yeah. I do that too.
Yeah?
You do like a little heel rock and then...
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. I'd have to pay attention. I've never actually thought about it, but maybe I need to think about that more because I definitely do a couple things. I also it's been almost 3 months now since I barbell benched because the last month of my shoulder and the month before that I was working on the dumbbell bench a lot, and the month before that I was doing incline, slight incline bench. So I haven't done an actual barbell bench because Nick's shoulder doesn't do well with barbell bench. So honestly, it's probably been longer than that since I've flat, straight barbell benched. It's a lot of dumbbell work and machines, but I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Gym habits are funny, but
I'll come back to it. There's definitely probably some gym habits I have that
we could probably do a whole podcast on gym habits because I have
Maybe we'll
a
do that
bunch of
next
them that I
season.
notice I do before. Yeah,
maybe we'll have to think about that for next season.
Yeah, either that or a bonus episode.
Yeah. So I think for the drill, I want to save a couple of these things because I think one of the things I wanted to talk about and I want you guys to kind of take away is what I wanted to talk about, and we can still do this quick, is how to build a 5-minute warm-up that builds buy-in for athletes, right? I think one of the things I wanted to mention too from the warm-up is the warm-up is such a great way to get a little extra work in for somebody, right? If you know someone struggles with core work, if you know someone struggles with, like Jerry kind of said, quad or hamstring strength or glute strength or even shoulders, back, whatever it might be, the warm-up's a really good place so you can get a little bit of extra work in. And I kind of consider it like this. If someone struggles with a position, say the back squat, right, and they struggle with thoracic spine strength or just or deadlifting, or no, let's say the squat. They go with the squat, they're all the way through, and then they come up and they're just losing this position. And you just see a lot of curling, right? One of the things I like to work on with that is obviously prepping the core a little bit more to withstand that force. So I'll have someone do like a hollow hold or a side plank or a regular plank inside the warm up in a couple sets. And then that's really good core work that they're getting. That's then going to prep them for the actual movement. That's going to get them a little ready to do what they got to do, right? So with the drill, I think what we can kind of take away, if we were going to build like a 5-minute warm up for somebody, like perfect 5-minute warm up, not too complicated, not too involved. What do you got? What are you doing? What are you going for? Say we're gonna do a squat. We're gonna do a squat day and 5-minute warm up.
5-minute warm up. I'm gonna have the bike in there because that's gonna get our heart rate up a little bit, get our blood flowing. Then with that, I would do something for. Is this for me specifically or just anybody?
I want this to be like a 5-minute warm up that somebody could take tomorrow and use.
Okay, so we're on the bike, maybe like a minute, just a simple minute there, and then after that, get off and do heel elevated goblet squats. Go like full cyclist squat, so we're going full depth, so we can warm up the knees a little bit. Also in that position, you feel your hip flexors kind of getting a little more activated there too. So I would say like 2-second descent, 1-second pause, come right back up. And then at the top, just come right back down. Don't like rest in between. Get a little bit of blood flow to the quads. If we're keeping it 5 minutes, you're going to want that time under tension to just be burning a little bit, not like super fatigued because it's not that heavy. And then once you're done with that, go into like, I would say hip airplane for like 4 reps per side, something really simple. Then hop back on the bike and do it again. And I don't know. Sorry, I think my nephew just died. But I would hop on the bike again, go for minute 2 on there, and then do the other 2 sets. And you're looking at probably just under 5 minutes there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would be something
If anything,
similar. If I only had
pushing 5:30.
Yeah. If I only had 5 minutes, what I'd probably do is I'd do a minute bike. With every 20 seconds, I'd probably increase the intensity slightly on the bike just to kind of get to that end, get the heart rate really going. A minute's not that long, so a lot of people could push a minute and get like their heart rate going and a little bit of a heavy breath. From there, I'd probably work on 3 main things. I'd work on the single leg RDL, and I would do that. If you're new, I would do that assisted. If you're not new, I would do that unassisted, either with some weight or whatever. Then the hip airplane, I'd do probably 2 sets of this. I'd probably do 8 reps per side of the single leg RDL, 8 reps per side of the hip airplane, and then 8 reps per side of the open book stretch. That would probably be my go-to. So it would be a minute on the bike, increasing intensity, 8 single leg RDL, 8 hip airplane, 8 open book stretch, 1 minute on the bike, 8 RDLs, 8 hip airplanes, 8 open book stretch. And then honestly, I think you'd be good to go for getting into the squat. You do those first couple warm-up sets, and then you go from there. That would be like ideal 5-minute warm-up. You really wouldn't need much else. If we were going to do that for the reverse, and it would be like a bench press movement, then what I would say is I would do the 1-minute bike, and then I'd probably do YTWs and swimmers, and then maybe the open book stretch as well, or like the scapular push-up into like a downward dog.
Yeah, if I'm doing swimmers, I'd probably take out W's and put in the scapular push-ups to save time if we're like really losing time. But very similar idea, just to get the serratus moving a little bit, get blood flow to the shoulders, and then obviously like the weight of your body too. It just preps your body a little more for the bench press. So scap push-ups are like, those are S tier for me. I freaking love them.
Yeah, I love them too.
Dude,
I haven't been able to do them, which sucks. But.
We got to do one of those charts.
S tier.
Get the S tier. Yeah, all right. We're gonna have to do one of those.
A buzz cut.
What?
Buzz cut is S tier.
A buzz cut is S tier?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's simple.
Okay.
Ron Swanson.
I got it. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. He gave everyone a buzz cut on the basketball team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
I went to Delaware this weekend, and I was talking to somebody about Parks and Rec. Tell me your opinion. I think The Office is funnier, but I think Parks and Rec is a better show by far.
I've had this conversation with so many people. I think that The Office is a better show in terms of character development and individual storylines, where Parks and Rec has more of a group feel, and it makes you feel like you get the family vibe from both of them. But with Parks and Rec, there's something a little more upbeat about it, and I think that the ridiculous town that they live in makes it funny because it's so crazy. Where in The Office, it's funny because it's like, dude, I know people like this. Like, this is not... Like, it's very realistic, where the humor in Parks and Rec is a little exaggerated, which makes it funnier in some points. But, like, it's so hard. I'll bounce between them, but I'm very seasonal, too. Like, there are certain seasons where I want to watch one versus the other. The one thing I will say, though, is I've had an argument with my sister about this more than once. The Parks and Rec theme song is better.
Yeah, dude,
it's so good.
And I think, personally, I think Ron Swanson's like up there with Michael
S tier
Scott.
character as in any show. He's the most well put together character in terms of like, he's a man's man. He enjoys the right food. He is all about nature, preserving nature.
Women and breakfast food.
Yep, that's me. When he said that, I was like, I get him. I get that.
I am him.
I'm Ron Swanson, except I'm not, and everybody's sad that they're not. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's great.
But yeah, I think that's that. I think the only thing I want you guys or extra that I would add to this is if you haven't, great couple of videos Prescript has, or Jordan Shallow specifically. I would go check that out for some warm up stuff, because he talks about why the RDL and the airplane are so good, as well as like the PVC stuff, and I think that's really really important to do. And yeah, they explain it really well, and they have a couple of really good videos breaking down the warm up. So that would be my takeaway, or the just like the last thing to give away, the influence pick of the day.
Yeah, I would say we always save this for the very end, and I don't know why we're never saying it in the beginning, but go vote for Brandon Trainer of the Year.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. I gotta ask. You reminded me, Jerry. I gotta ask you something. I'm making a very cool ad for Trainer of the Year. It's gonna come out probably end of next week, but I need you to do a voiceover for me. So
I think I know what you're gonna ask. But yeah, that's go vote for Brandon, because that's important to both of us.
So let's kind of recap some of this stuff, because I do have the Trainer of the Year. www.worldmmaawards.com /vote. We also have the free guide ebook, how to choose a goal. That's at www.bgperform.com /goals. If you do want to work with myself or Jerry in any type of training, I am taking clients on at ABC, which is in Latham. I'm also taking on clients online for professional athletes or, the everyday gym goer, and so is Jerry. So you can reach out on www.bgperform.com /training, or reach out to Jerry if you want to work with him on Instagram at Coach Jerry Hayes, or at bgperform _. We got the newsletter coming out every Friday, which is going to kind of give you the rundown on what's going on, whether it's the podcast with Jerry and myself, or any new things that we've released, whether it be content or projects, anything that comes out. So got a lot of stuff cooking right now, trying to make it happen. Check out the YouTube always. Post the podcast every Tuesday. Usually comes out at 6 a.m. Yeah, I think that's it. Anything to add to that?
Beautiful. Nothing to add to it. That was a beautiful recap.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.